Hey, hello, and welcome everybody to the Footy Femme Fatale podcast. It's been a while since I've spoken to you and to you, but it is time for our next update, so stick around. Turn the volume on for a woman's football show. You're listening to Footy Femme Fatale, a women's football podcast. Yes, a women's football podcast. So I want to welcome you to our next update. We're going to do this bi-weekly, so that every 2 months there must be some episode because so much is happening in women's football and so much I want to catch you up on. So I need to be consistent and tell you what's going on. So first of all, my name is Tammy. I am your host here at the Footy Femme Fatale podcast, as you know by now, hopefully. We're going to talk about everything that's happening off and on the pitch. So let's get ready for our first segment, which is the Footy Matches of the Week. So it was a while since I've spoken to you. The last time I went to the game with Kyra and our good friend Wesley to the Nations League match, Netherlands versus Germany. That's already been almost a month ago, so it's been a while. That match, first of all, was great to watch. We enjoyed ourselves a lot in Breda. There was a lot of support. We were in this Sfeervak, which essentially means the ambience section of the stadium. And we had such a good time just chanting along. Unfortunately, seeing Germany score twice, but Netherlands coming back twice as well. So the score ended 2-2, which was, I think, very reasonable. It was a very tight match between the two of them. And funnily enough, the previous Nations League match was also Netherlands versus Germany last year. So their last Nations League match was Netherlands-Germany. And then their first Nations League match was also Netherlands-Germany. So it's funny how things unravel. So that ended in 2-2. Just to name another few Nations League matches that were quite remarkable to watch. Spain versus Belgium. That was a 0-2 lead for Belgium, not the world champion Spain, but that eventually was turned around by our world champions Spain in 20 minutes time. So that ended in 3-2 win, which was quite remarkable to say the least. And it just shows how dominant Spain and their players can be. So keep an eye out on that. The next match after that, Spain had to fly to England and face the European champions. So England versus Spain at Wembley Park turned into a 1-0 win for England with a goal of Jess Park. There was one incident that I want to mention as well. During that match, the lights literally went out. The whole stadium was out. I'll put a screenshot or a short video here. I don't think this ever happened in such a remarkable, huge match before. It was just funny to see that the whole stadium was out. The audience members were putting their phones up to see what was happening. So it actually gave a nice little ambiance in the stadium for like 2 to 3 minutes until they turned on the lights again. That was quite interesting. And then last but not least, in the Nations League match, just one that I want to mention, Ireland versus Slovenia. And Ireland lost their biggest loss against Slovenia, who you would think, Ireland should have beaten. It was a 4-0 loss, and this is their biggest loss since 2012. So another one for the books. Unfortunately, a negative one for Ireland. All right, so what else has been happening? So that was the Nations League, where all the European nations come together and compete in the Nations League. But obviously the leagues itself has also happened, and also a lot of cup action has happened. So Barcelona Real, just to give you another emphasis on how dominant Barcelona is in the Copa de la Reina. Their first leg was 8-0 win against Real, and then the second leg was a 3-1-0 win again. So just to show you, the El Clasico in the women's football is not the same as El Clasico in the men's football. Then, last but not least, a match that actually happened yesterday. Yes, I'm recording this on a Sunday, and yesterday on Saturday, Chelsea won the Women's League Cup. I think it's officially the Subway Women's League Cup or something. And they won over City, so that's why I'm wearing the City shirt. The Chelsea shirt is behind me, and they won with 2-1. The unfortunate thing was the 2 goals that Chelsea scored weren't actually really nice goals. Chelsea scored, very, fortunate and lucky in the first goal. But the second goal was actually an own goal from Hasegawa. And that was really sad for her because that eventually was the winning goal in the match. So 2-1 win for Chelsea. Why am I mentioning this? Because this is the first out of 4 matches that these two teams will meet in the next 11 days. So the first one was yesterday. So actually in a span of 12 days, they will compete against each other 4 times. So this one was the Women's League Cup. Next is the Women's Champions League. So spoilers, I'm going to talk about that in a bit. In the Women's Champions League quarterfinal, so the first leg, then they'll do a league competition duel, which is, a regular season. And then again, the second leg of the Champions League quarterfinal. So first one is to Chelsea, which was an important one, an actual final. But we'll see how Man City can maybe turn it around and, get their revenge. All right. So that was the footy matches of the week, well, actually of the bye weeks. That does make sense. Of the 2 weeks, we didn't cover anything. So let's get going to our next segment, which is On the Spot. All right, so on the spot. Who is on the spot? Who are we going to highlight? Is there any stories that we want to discuss or that I quickly want to mention because that is such a remarkable story? So, as you know, Footy Femme Fatale is not only about the football matches, also about the players, also about the managers and all of those. So it's not just one thing. I'm not only talking about football, I'm talking about everything that's surrounding, the diversity, equity, and inclusion around women's football in particular as well here in Europe. So one big story that came out in the past few weeks was that, there's a lot of queer stories going on. So what is queer? So queer is anyone within the LGBTQ plus community. And if we talk about queer, it can be stories about trans people, it can be stories about people that have a certain sexual orientation and all of that. So 2 things I quickly want to mention when we're talking about on the spot. So the first story is when we looked at the Nations League, there was one that stood out and that was quite remarkable. I'm using the word remarkable a lot, I'm realizing now. But it was actually really nice to see that the captains of Denmark and Sweden, Pernilla Harder and Magdalena Eriksson, are actually a couple in real life. So those 2 were captains. They obviously had to do the toss and all of that. And it's really nice to see that, even if you're a couple, you can still be rivalries in your nation with your nation's team. They do play at the same club, I believe. So it was really nice to see. And you might think, well, they're just gonna be nice to each other, but that was not the case. So I'll put a video here if you're watching this on YouTube to see that that was definitely not the case. The rivalry was on. And this can happen in football. Couples can actually meet each other. You don't really, or you don't at all see this in men's football because, as we all know, there's just a lot of taboo still on men liking men in men's football. So, in women's football, we can do this, and it doesn't compromise on the rivalry at all. So, more queer stories when we're talking about this. Sonia Bonpastor, the manager of Chelsea, formerly of Lyon, has actually announced in her book Une vie de foot, a life of football, that she's actually in a relationship with her assistant for 13 years. So nobody really knew this. It was a secret. They kept it a secret for various reasons. 13 years ago is 20. This is where my math is off the chart. 2012? Yes. So, yes. So you might think, we were quite acceptance, or the community was quite acceptance. But again, in football, things are just not as progressive as you think it should. So, yeah, very interesting story there. 13 years. They actually have 4 kids together as well. So I'm really curious to see how did they keep this a secret? Like, how do they interact with their family? Like, their family knows? Like, they must know. Like, that's so crazy to me to think about how this burden, essentially, has been put on their shoulders just because it was not a thing back in the day. So back in the day is, 13 years ago. So this goes to show that the captains of Denmark and Sweden, and then this story, we see a significant growth when it comes to LGBTQ plus stories in women's football as well. So yeah, I'm happy about that. So moving on to our next segment. So yeah, in the off-pitch antics, we actually discuss things that are off-pitch. So that last story was kind of off-pitch as well. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight those stories because we're not just a women's football podcast. We talk about other stuff as well. So with other stuff, Lieke Martens, our lovely Dutch striker from Paris Saint-Germain, gave birth to her son. I hope I pronounced this correctly, Loan Erbe van Leer. So her partner, Benjamin van Leer, and Lieke have a son. So congratulations to them if you're seeing this. Hopefully Lieke is enjoying motherhood, but will also be back on the pitch soon. Another off-pitch antics that I want to mention is not a lot released yet, so this is quite new information. But Ted Lasso, the Apple Plus series that ran for 3 seasons, is coming back. I loved Ted Lasso. It's a great show about football, in particular in England and in the men's football. But eventually, hopefully, in the 4th season, Jason Sudeikis will come back. And there are rumors that he's going to take over a women's team, or he's going to set up a women's team, something in that regard. So I'm really curious to see how that story is going to evolve. And second of all, if they're going to lose any fans over that, because I do think people are going to have some sort of opinion on it, which is totally fine. But unfortunately, I think the makers are going to have to deal with a lot of backlash as well. So let's see how that evolves. I'm curious to see when the season will air. But yeah, this is brand new information. Last but not least, the VAR. So as we all know, the virtual assistant referee, that is very common in the men's football, let's be honest, is not as common in the women's football matches. So even if you look at the European Championship or the World Cup, you might have the VAR. It's not even a consistent thing. If you look at the Women's Champions League, it's not even there either. So the UEFA is going to change that. And they have announced that they're probably, most likely, it's not confirmed yet, will introduce the VAR, so the virtual assistant referee, to the UEFA Women's Champions League matches. So, yeah, let's see if that happens. That would be very nice for the game. And yeah, that's it for the off-pitch antics. Alright, so speaking of Champions League matches, as I already mentioned, there's going to be 4 amazing quarterfinals happening the 18th and 19th of March for the first leg, and then the second leg will happen at the 26th and 27th of March. So that's going to be literally this week when you're listening to this. And we need to discuss what's happening in those matches. You can watch all of these matches for free, by the way. This is not an ad, but you can watch them on DAZN. their YouTube or in the app. It's all free. You just register and it's free. So please do so, because it is important that we get the viewers, that people watch this, so women's football can grow as well. So what are the matches? They're the quarterfinals. We actually mentioned this last time as well. So just to give you a heads up, the matches are Real Madrid versus Arsenal, Bayern versus Olympique Lyon, Wolfsburg versus Barca, and then last but not least, the two matches again for Man City versus Chelsea. So all great matches, all top teams. So definitely worth a watch if you can. Definitely do it. So yeah, let's see what happens there. Hopefully next time I speak to you, I'll have another co-host and we can discuss these matches and other matches and anything that's happening off the pitch, on the pitch, with the players, with the managers. There's just so much going on. I need to keep you posted like every time. Anyway, back to you. I hope you have a lovely day, and thank you for listening and watching. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye!